So, okay, opening it up.
All right, we're gonna add it there. See if I can get a little bit more water.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here early. We will begin in approximately 2 minutes or so. In the meantime, please use the chat feature to let us know where you are joining us from.
Okay. Let's see. Phyllis and Debbie, are you actually sitting in the same room together? No, that's the preferred method, Phyllis. That's how we all do it around here.
That's how we go off camera sometimes.
Exactly.
Okay, well, it's about 6 o'clock. We'll get started. Hi, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this Wheaton conversation with Lily Wilkins and Brianna Gluszak. I'm Pamela Weichman, the Director of Education and Artist Services at WheatonArts. I am a white female with long brown hair and blue eyes, and I'm wearing a brown t-shirt. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm broadcasting from Southern New Jersey, which I recognize as traditionally the land of the Lenni Lenape. Our format for this episode is a webinar. The suggested view for the program is gallery. To enable gallery, click the view option in the upper right-hand corner of your screen and select gallery. I'll be monitoring the chat throughout the program for your technical and general questions. Links to additional resources may also be posted in the chat throughout the program as they become relevant to the conversation. If you wish to pose a question to the speakers, we encourage you to use the Q&A feature. Should you lose connection for any reason, please close all windows, then click on your original email link to join again. Wheaton Conversations is presented by PNC Arts Alive, the United Nations International Year of Glass, and the Art Alliance for Contemporary Glass. We thank them for their support. Through membership, donations, and shopping at shop.wheatonarts.org, you can also show your support. Please consider exploring these options so we can continue to offer free programs like this. It is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this program, Alexander Rosenberg. Alex is a Philadelphia-based artist, educator, writer, and the Glass Studio director at WheatonArts. He earned a Master of Science in Visual Studies from MIT and a BFA in Glass from Rhode Island School of Design. He is a founding member of Hyperopia Projects, headed the Glass program at University of the Arts, and was an artist member of Vox Populi Gallery. Alex, thank you for joining us and for leading the conversation.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce our current fellows, Bri Gluszak and Lily Wilkins. Bree is coming by way of Ohio, where they've been working at various institutions in that area. I think I saw them most recently around the Ohio State University, and it sounds like maybe there's going to be someplace new in Ohio in the near future. And Lily is coming to us, I think, most recently from the core fellowship at Penland, where Lily's been kind of picking up glass after studying fibers at Maryland Institute College of Art. So I was very interested to see both of their work, and it's been exciting to see them working together in the studio. I'm going to hand it off to Bree and Lily to tell us a little bit more about what they do.
Thanks, Alex, for the introduction. I'm going to jump into a presentation here. Just give me 1 second. I realized that I advanced my slides during our test run just a few moments ago. There we go. All right, you should be seeing my screen. Maybe Alex or Lily can confirm that. Okay, perfect. I'm going to give a kind of short, semi-scripted presentation about my work, a few different projects that I've done, and kind of like give you a general rundown about who I am. My name is Bree or Brianna Gluszak. I use they, them pronouns. I am currently based in Columbus, Ohio, but soon moving to Toledo, Ohio to start a role at Bowling Green State University. This slide is kind of just a for fun slide, but I also, as kind of being in the academic sphere, want to give you like a really short content warning for the slideshow that I'm going to be giving today. There'll be kind of themes of gender and sexuality throughout the show, as well as mature language and representation of the nude body. So I won't feel offended if you like jump off the Zoom for any reason or feel awkward about it at all. So feel free to do as you please. I just wanted to like let everyone know a few things about the Glass Studio. I'm not sure how many people here are familiar with Glass Studios, who've been at Wheaton before, but this is our Glass Studio at Ohio State during one of our intro classes. And one of the reasons I'm showing you this is just to kind of give a precursor that at all stages of my career and at moments in time, the Glass Studio hasn't always been available for all types of people, as far as like accessibility and who is welcome in that studio. Often the Glass Studio is made for a male body. It's often made without like everyone's bodies in mind. And so a lot of times the hand tools are too large for my hands to fit into, or I can't figure out how to sit in a bench because it's too wide or too big. And so I think a lot about our bodies in space and in the studio. Here's an image of all the guys that I graduated my undergraduate with, as well as my male professor from undergrad. And I was like one of the few non-males that graduated together. And so just kind of like thinking about the history of glass, often it was reserved for the male body to be present in the studio space. The first project I'm going to show you is a performance piece that I conducted while at Pilchuck Glass School. I was working there as an interim studio tech during someone's paternity leave. And the space of the glass shop that I chose to have this performance take place in is called the gaffer station. The gaffer traditionally is the craftsperson making the work in a glass shop. And historically, glassblowers are men. I happened to attend Pilchuck pretty early on in my career and witnessed the third time in the school's history when two female identifying individuals gaffed together in that space. So kind of growing up in that atmosphere of not seeing female or non-male representation in glass became really a precursor for a lot of the work I think about and make today. As this video plays, I'm going to read through a script that another artist read during the performance piece. When I work in the glass shop, I forget about my breasts. I forget that they are present on my body. I curl my back outwards and slide my legs back as I take a heat. If I'm too sweaty for this maneuver to work, then I grab the front of my shirt and pull it off my sweaty chest. The shirt will deflect the heat, but also absorb it. I block out the hot burning sensation as I straighten my back once again to bear the weight of the glass. I block out the hot burning sensation as I lean my body far out to the side of the bench to reach the glass. My breasts are the least important part of my body in this moment in this room. I was never taught these maneuvers. I was never taught that my breasts might present challenges for me. No one ever discussed how to maintain the motion of them getting in the way. I felt my breasts in the studio all the time when I was first learning, but in so many ways, I felt embarrassed to talk openly about them. At the time, most women I knew would discreetly and nervously ask each other for tampons in an emergency. Now I just ask as loud as I can, so nearby women with purses full of them will flock towards me with way more than I need. Today, as I teach my students, they are way more open about their bodies and how to fit themselves into spaces. I recently got asked how I deal with my breasts getting hot in the studio, and I couldn't remember. I had to go through the motions while thinking about them to gain an answer. I curl my back outwards and slide my legs back as I take a heat. If I'm too sweaty for this maneuver to work, then I grab the front of my shirt and pull it off my sweaty chest. The shirt will deflect the heat, but also absorb it. I block out the hot burning sensation as I straighten my back once again to bear the weight of the glass. I block out the hot burning sensation as I lean my body far out to the side of the bench to reach the glass. I'm glad for once in my life to have been blessed with small breasts, and I'm sorry that you aren't. So going forward, this is my graduate thesis work from the Ohio State University. I'm just going to read a short text that was part of the didactic panel that went along with this work while kind of flipping through the images of it. I find myself looking down when I see a woman's breasts on the bridge of exposure. I've convinced myself that I am not attracted to her. I am not the ogler, but to her, am I the one ogling? I don't feel uncomfortable because her breasts are present, the underside falling underneath her cropped top, the tips caressing the seam that made her top so short. I feel myself in my own uncomfortability. I changed my outfit to meet a person to pick up an espresso machine from Craigslist. I changed my shirt from crop to long. I get to the house and a woman in a crop top opens the door. I find myself looking down. I've convinced myself that I'm not attracted to her. I'm not the one ogling, but to her, am I the one ogling? When I enter the glass studio, I think about my body. I think about how my body can feel itself fit or belong into space, or how it can feel isolated from it. I think about your body and how it moves in unison with the glass, my body, and the space that surrounds it. Together, we must find a way to fit into the curves of the studio in that moment. We must find our place in that space. As I push towards the artwork, this idea of finding your body fitting or not fitting into different spaces is explorative. My installations exploit instances that grow and shrink the viewer's physicality in relation to another object or space, often playing with the moment of finding the world larger than life through the over-exaggerated architecture. I have recently found myself caught in a look, one that permeates all of my being, the kind of look that doesn't bounce off and doesn't seem to disappear, though it only lasted a moment. I'm questioning my gaze, my looks, and the gaze and looks that come my way. Through co-opting the Auga moment of a look, the look that juts out from the eyes of Tex Avery's character Wolfie, I'm processing these looks into my own cartoony constructions that are comprised of paint, wood, glass, and textiles to form an installation. The Auga is cringy, crinkly, playful, and funny. When I watch the two eyes jut out from Wolfie's face, I sit back, relax, laugh, while my whole body tenses up and freezes as I remember too many unwanted looks that have shot my way. So I was thinking a lot about cartoons and the cartoons that I grew up with, but also the media that I grew up with and how those things kind of impacted my personhood. And one of the things is this cartoon by Tex Avery. The Zoom format does not really allow me to share a YouTube video very well, but if you go online in any capacity and look up Red Hot Riding Hood by the cartoon artist Tex Avery, you'll find some rendition of this video. And what happens in the video is that Little Red Riding Hood is kind of re-scripted into a nightclub dancer who is on a stage taking her clothes off in like a burlesque kind of style. And there's a wolf character who's very distinctly and hypersexualized through his long limousine that he rolls up in, that seems to go on for an eternity. And this kind of notion of him like kind of catcalling her and like his eyes popping out and his tongue panting and he's like at her. And so this was kind of an image that I kind of found and stuck with me, where I remembered it pretty distinctly from growing up on watching like Sunday morning cartoons and Looney Tunes and those kinds of things. And it sort of stuck with me throughout the years, and I kind of refound this cartoon as the beginning of this like Awooga moment where like the eyes pop out from a character's head, generally towards a female body. So after kind of having that thesis show and beating around the bush a little bit about like thinking about the Awooga and space and time, I had an exhibition just shortly after at Urban Glass in New York. And I decided, let's lean in, let's just call the show Awooga and think about this kind of like looking and looker relationship that happens in our lives. So the exhibition space, for those of you that are not familiar at Urban Glass, this was their window gallery space specifically. And within that space, you can kind of come into the gallery. So the section that you're seeing right now is a space that the viewer can actually walk through and interact with the work. The window that you're seeing is one of two windows that you could see from kind of the corner of the street from outside. So you could see it from all hours of the day, but during the gallery hours, it was open inside. This first work that was featured in the space was CNC'd and then assembled blown pieces on them. This piece in particular, if you chose to wear a skirt that day, these smiley faces would be kind of maniacally staring up at you, maybe at something a little delicate in your skirt. We're not sure. And in that kind of search for finding out the first instance for the Awooga, this video is just a quick Google search of the word, and I was kind of trying to figure out where it originated from, but also where it's seen most, how it's used on the internet. And one of the things that kind of came up was this really kind of disturbing text that I found through kind of just a simple Google search, looking at these instances of Awooga. But there was this image of like three women just like out for dinner, who knows, and it kind of circulated the internet on websites like Reddit for a moment, and text was kind of added to it over time. And so I'm just going to read the text for you here. So it's jaw drops, eyes pop out of head, tongue rolls out, humana humana humana, Awooga Awooga, eeyaw eeyaw, boing, picks up jaw, fixes eyes, rolls up tongue, buries face in ass, blah 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 blah, whoa mama. So as kind of an attempt to like reckon with this text that I found that was like, you know, it's so easy for someone just to write on the internet in an instance, thinking a lot about like Instagram or Facebook comments where people just like, you know, will trash something in a second, or their like most human whatever bullshit instincts come out and they just like type it out. I remade parts of this text out of glass, which took me months to do. So these are some of those words, a little bit more of the like more appropriate words from that text, but as kind of an attempt for me to like reckon with it and deal with it. So here's tongue rolls out. Each one of these is about like 1.5 inches, 2 inches by 2 inches. And they were just sort of passively placed on this ledge in the gallery for viewers to kind of like walk by and engage with in different ways. So within that gallery space as well, there was a natural pinch point that one could squeeze your body through if you desired to. And I chose to block it off with this fabric and wood panel. So you could only see that second window from the exterior of the building unless you peered through these peepholes. So here's a peeper peeping. And it was kind of the natural height for you to want to peer in, but also kind of have to bend down and expose your butt a little bit to the other gallery viewers. This is from the street side, what people would see as you looked through. So your eyes would be falling through the wall, or a representation of your eyes falling through the wall, while you stared at these two doing whatever it is you think that they're doing. And then here's kind of the like final view from that outside space of that space, with the two pieces of glass nestled in that kind of pink carpet in the pink painted room, with the eyes falling out without a viewer present. Later, something unexpected happened, which was that everybody on the internet got to kind of be the final peeper and viewer of the work. These are Google Street View images of my exhibition, thanks to the Google machine. I really like to think that this one in particular, they like waited for someone not to be there to take the image. So the next project I'm going to talk to you briefly about is a collaborative work that I did with a friend and painter, Hannah Parrott. And this is the kind of like artist book / exhibition catalog that we put together for it. We kind of got this opportunity to take over the whole bottom floor of the Ohio State Gallery, which is kind of like a 5 or 6 room space, and got to make this kind of huge show together in a very short period of time. And I think one of the things about collaborating that is really great for me is that it allows me to make decisions really quickly, and it allows me to sort of like grasp onto ideas without overthinking them or thinking, oh, it's a bad idea. A little bit in the same way that like being here at Wheaton on a fellowship has allowed me to kind of, you know, jump into ideas quicker than I would normally in my studio, because I just have so much time to work in the glass shop. I'm going to read you a quick little excerpt from the writing. Whenever I set out to tell you a story, I get lost in the who, what, where, and when. I only tend to focus on the details. That confuses you. What was the point of this story? A rocky, rough, undescript beginning with an elaborate image created out of almost nothing at the end. I feel like I've shared a grand moment of my life and personhood with you. You are lost, picturing a fresh, long, green blade of grass, while I explain how I got here. The grass is only a minor detail, one that I pick out of the ground and stretch between my fingers to whistle through. I can only whistle with a blade of grass. My body contains unique memories of dressing up like a cowgirl, following my grandfather around the pancake breakfast, accidentally covering my pancakes in too much syrup when my mother wasn't looking. For some reason, she always dressed as a cowgirl crossed with a clown. What does the cowgirl have to do with the clown? As I grew out of my cowgirl clothes, I was told I didn't have to dress up for the stampede anymore. My grandfather had passed away. My mother was no longer a clown. We only went for 1 or 2 more years. I don't remember them. I look at pictures of my mother dressed as a cowgirl, my brother a cowboy, and myself in sweatpants. I refused to wear denim at that point in my life, and I am uncertain as to why I made that choice. When I remember my experience as a child, I imagine the world as larger than life, simple and vast. Yet, when I remember my childhood room, I remember fitting perfectly in the bed, the chair, and my clothing. The house was organized with spaces that both fit my body and ones that didn't. When I enter the glass studio, I often had the same feeling I felt as a child, sitting at the large dining room table, trying to peer my eyes over the ledge. I enter the studio. I pick up a pair of shears and struggle to open the blades with my narrow fingers pressed firmly against the long, broad, chasmic handles that need a larger hand with thicker fingers to function correctly. I figure out how to adjust my body to the space and tools, knowing that I no longer have the capacity to grow into things as I did when I was a child. The final body of work I'm going to show you is a show that I recently had at the Weston Art Gallery in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is a part of the Cincinnati Arts Association in kind of their like theater district building. I was lucky enough to have their street level space, so people as they came to different shows could come through the gallery, but also people could view it from the exterior at night. And I titled that show Late Bloomer. So Late Bloomer asks you how to contemplate how you came to be. How did you get where you are today, and who have you become? I'm again going to read some text that was didactic panels that went alongside the work, just for general context, but also maybe general storytelling. I thought for a while that if I punched my chest over and over again, that my flat areas would form bruises, and those bruises would turn into small lumps that which my breasts would grow. I thought this because of a friend's mom. She must have lied when she told me that her brother punched her chest, and a few days later, she asked him to punch the other side. Her bruises turned to breasts, and she quickly became a woman. I punched, and to my amazement, my bruises became red, then purple, and even a little green. In looking back to my adolescent experience watching America's Next Top Model and backup dancers on MTV videos, I would ask myself if I wish it to have been any other way. The moment when I curled my eyelashes for the first time, to spilling nail polish all over the back porch, to wanting and wishing for something to grow out of my chest, to never really figuring out how to wink. All I ever wanted was to grow up, grow in, and manifest the words spoken onto me, things will get better as you grow older. This is just a detail of my toe casted with a chipped nail and some CVS $2 nail polish. I could never quite figure out how to wink. Like the wink had me, I didn't have the wink. I would curl a whole half my face up towards my eye and blink in hopes that a blink would look like a wink. I could never quite figure out why you wink. Like you'd caught me, you didn't have to wink. You wouldn't curl or furl your brow towards your eye and blink. Your blink could never look like a wink. The first time I tried to curl my eyelashes, they all fell out, one by one, slowly finding their way into my eyelids and onto my eyeballs, crying and crying while digging them out. I would blow them away and wish for the thick, black, luscious lashes of my pubescent neighbor. He didn't deserve those lashes. What did he do to deserve those lashes? So that's the end of the work for Late Bloomer. I'm gonna read this kind of semi-nonsensical poem. I also have a little hole that I made during my time here in the background as well, if you have my view on. But this is kind of a poem that I wrote nearing the end of grad school that I've sort of been carrying with me in a lot of ways. And because this is amongst like glass people, I'll give you some context that this was written in a glass studio while watching intro students. But I think it expands past that and is something that I've been kind of recreating in different projects in different ways for a moment now. It's kind of an experience for it to be read to you. So let me go ahead and read it. The whole of the whole goes into the whole object gets hot in the whole object gets cold outside of the whole. The hotness of the whole creates the whole. The absence of the whole creates the final version of the whole. The whole of the whole becomes the object. The whole of the whole becomes objectified. The whole is full of the glory that emanates into the whole. The whole can only be whole with the glory from the whole. The whole loses control in the whole. The whole leaves the whole uncontrollably. The whole stays in the whole controllably. The controllability of the whole allows the whole to enter in. The uncontrollability of the whole forces its exit from the whole. The whole got too large to fit in the whole. The whole is swimming in the whole. I've lost the whole inside of the whole. The whole got too cold and fell off in the whole. The whole had to be removed quickly from the whole. The whole had to be removed before it damaged the whole. Is the whole more important than the whole? The whole is more delicate than the whole. Or is the whole more than the whole? The whole is more important than the whole. The whole came before the whole. The whole will exist after the whole. The whole has seen many wholes. This is the life. This is one hole in the life of the whole. This is one hole in the whole with many holes. So I'll leave you there on my whole poem. Thank you for listening to me blabber on for 20 minutes.
That's great. And I'll remind people while we're handing it over to Lily that if you have questions for our presenters, feel free to enter them into the Q&A and I'll pass them on. And then, yeah, let's see what Lily has to say.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Lily Wilkins. I'm an interdisciplinary artist and designer with a background in textiles. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, but for the last 2 years, I've been based in Western North Carolina, participating in the core fellowship program at the Penland School of Craft. This is a question that I pose to myself in my own work and is kind of a starting point for a lot of projects. If we have a memory of a place, does it have a memory of us? Growing up in Los Angeles has really informed how I look at spaces. The city has such a wide variety of architectural styles built on top of each other and often melding together. All of these different styles and materials are distinct and have their own history, but when they're amassed together, they become something else, something familiar and also uncanny. And it's the uncanny moments that I find provocative. A recurring theme for me in my work is presence and absence, particularly how spaces and objects hold evidence of use, evidence of us, and how that use often shows up as accidental compositions in built spaces. My parents also had a huge influence on me growing up. One of them is an interior designer with a background in architectural restoration and interior and history, and the other one is a set designer for the film industry. So my sister and I growing up would often hear conversations about like the accuracy of a molding in a scene in a movie that we'd be watching. So I think I was kind of trained unintentionally to have a focus on detail and just to look at things really closely. And I think both of them as an influence really affected how I interact with built environments. It made me think about the alterations that we make to spaces and how that becomes part of the space. And I'll often take photos of different things when I'm walking or driving around, usually pieces of sidewalks, signs, or storefronts. Sometimes it's about the color scheme, the material, or just the oddity of the placement of an object. I spend a lot of time taking photos of structures protruding out of the ground or embedded in the ground in particular. I'm really drawn to mundane objects that are designed to have both an aesthetic and a functional purpose. This is an ongoing series of maintenance hole covers that I've dumped into an Instagram account. So you can check out For the Love of Greats for some great content. For my undergrad, I went to the Maryland Institute College of Art for their fiber program, and it gave me a really strong foundation in fiber techniques. I think one of the most valuable parts of that experience were the faculty of that department. They were all immensely talented and dedicated working artists themselves, and they really encouraged investigation and discussion into the different fiber processes and also the histories of those. So they really influenced just how I make and how I look at things. So thank you to them. And also moving across the country, moving to Baltimore from Los Angeles really helps me recontextualize a lot of the landscapes that I was looking at from home. Bringing them with me and then being in this new environment made me look at spaces from home differently and also spaces in Baltimore differently and everywhere in between. So I kind of began drawing differently and photographing things differently, working from silhouettes pulled out of the context of where they were taken. And I spent a lot of time looking at how those different collections of things how those landscapes had things in common and what made them stand out. So on the right are some drawings that I was doing at the time. On the left are some embroideries of those spaces. While at MICA, I took classes all over the department, mostly in screen printing, weaving, and soft sculpture, learning how to make this pliable plane that I could influence both with the structure and the surface was really exciting for me. And I think it really informed how I approach design through different materials as well. I really love and find comfort in repeated patterns and modular forms. The nearly endless possibilities in pattern with just a simple module is really exciting to me, and I often engage in processes that encourage tedium. Towards the end of my time at MICA, I was focusing on more industrial forms, looking at how I could pattern and replicate the various fiber techniques I had learned, and drawing various just different, still drawing from places that I'd been, but also collecting them and trying to replicate them with fiber materials. So these are some drawings of different traffic islands, or the kind of protrusions in the middle of a street that you'll walk over or drive around if you're in a car. This is a piece based on the previous drawing. So this is a traffic island with a wood backing that I cut. And then I hand embroidered and hand sewed all of these kind of patchwork pieces together. So this is 6 feet by 1.5 feet wide, and it's linen with wool embroidery on the surface. This is another one. This is based on a traffic barrier from inside a parking lot. Near where my parents live, I used to walk past this parking lot every day, and there's this beautiful pink faded barrier. So I took a photo of it one day and decided to do a piece based on that. So this is on linen with a wood backing that I cut, and this is all hand stitched. There's another detail of that. So after MICA, I moved to Penland, and my main goal with going to Penland was to just immerse myself in different materials and processes. So getting to be there amongst all of these different crafts and makers was really an amazing and inspiring experience for me. And it led to a lot of unexpected negotiations between myself and my hands when I approached these new materials. The first class that I took as a core fellow in 2022 was actually in the glass studio. And I'd never touched glass or thought about using glass because it just wasn't something that I had seen or had exposure to. So it was really an amazing opportunity to get to take that class while I was there as a core fellow. And the focus of the class was introduction to glass blowing, but also making molds for blowing glass. So that's where I designed and started making my own production line. And throughout the core program, that was a really great way for me to stay connected to glass blowing, but also just to have consistent results as someone starting out. So on the right is the first cup that I designed, and then to the left are 2 other designs from that series that I made over the next couple years. These are some more cups from that series. This is some ones that I completed at the end of this past year. And after that first class had ended, I didn't think that I was too deep into glass yet, but I ended up watching almost every class that was there that summer whenever I had a spare moment from outside of the studio. And I think I was just so drawn to the community within that space, and just the possibilities of what you could do with glass, and the difficulty, the level of communication, and the absolute presence that the process demanded of you. It was unlike any material that I'd ever worked with. So I was just kind of fixed to it from that point on. I also got to experiment with other materials at Penland, wood, paper, some iron as well, but a lot of woodworking too. So wood was another kind of soft material that was accessible, but also just very approachable to me. So that was a great way to explore form as well. So these are some drawings of different modules that I was making. And this was a class that was lamp making with wood. So that was really a fun way to kind of explore these forms. And these are some more wood pieces. So on the top is the finished lamp, and then two side table and a floor lamp based on a fire brick that I found in the iron studio. This is the some process shots of that side table. There's the fire brick in the middle there. So I patterned it and scaled it up to make it into a functional table. And then once I had the form kind of closed, I painted it and did a stippling pattern, hand painted a pattern on the surface of it. These are the two finished pieces together. And then towards the end of my core fellowship in my second year, I was really focusing more on glass and going back to kind of some of these industrial modules that I've been looking at since undergrad. So I was looking at a lot of barrier forms, particularly bollards, which are just traffic barriers that line kind of control traffic or pedestrians in urban areas. And these are some drawings of those bollards and a real life bollard on the right there. So thinking about how I could break down these forms and replicate them in glass, I was basically making a lot of cylinders, spheres, and cones and kind of cutting them up in the cold shop, working with different hot and cold processes to see how I could replicate those forms, and then embellishing them with cane. So this is one of those kind of bent cylinder forms with some cane bits adorning the surface of it. These are some more process shots, just some different blown and solid sculpted pieces out of the hot shop. And then on the right is some marini that I cut up and fused together to make a base for one of the pieces. This is another lamp. I had a lot of fun playing around with these forms, and I had to throw in a couple functional pieces as well. So this is a glass lamp with a removable lid. This is another one similar to that previous bent cylinder. So this top part lifts off to expose the light bulb underneath. And this is one that's actually based off of the traffic cone. So it has the fused marini on the bottom, and then the cone stacked on top, and then etched with a Dremel to give it some surface texture. These are some smaller ones. And this is a collection of all of the bollards that I'd made over the winter and the spring, in this past spring. Yeah, so it was really fun to kind of work on them individually and then put them all together and see the similarities in them, and just the different pieces of like the same color that I had used and cut. And while I'm here, I've been kind of continuing to work with those forms, but experimenting more in the cold shop to see how I can just how many holes I can put in one cylinder before it breaks, basically. And these are some kind of pieces in progress as well. And that is all. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much to both of you for putting that together. We'll leave a little bit of time for questions from the group, but while people are warming up, I might ask a couple things first. So Lily, I'm always kind of curious when people come to glass with kind of a different sensibility, and this is kind of I guess maybe kind of a two-part question, but I wonder just kind of some of the similarities and differences, or like what it is to work with glass with kind of a sensibility that comes from a fibers-based practice. And then I actually heard you using a couple of descriptions of like fiber sculptures, like soft sculpture. And I wonder, like, is glass blowing a soft sculpture, or is glass an inflatable? You know, like what is it in the kind of canon of material that you're used to?
I think that's a really beautiful way of describing it. I think maybe that's why I was so drawn to it initially, because it is such a transformative material. It's a liquid and then it's a solid. So yeah, I guess it kind of can fall into many categories of what it is exactly or what the possibilities are of it. Yeah, I think my background in fiber was just kind of the starting place for me. Like I wasn't sure that I was going to stay a fibrous person, and I think going to Penland really ensured that I wouldn't be just in one medium. So getting to explore all those different mediums was really really informative and just opened up everything to me. And glass just has so many things about it that are mysterious and challenging. So I think that's part of the joy of working with the material is the more you work with it, the more you understand why you're drawn to it and why it speaks to you. So that's just a lifelong question, I think.
Thanks. That was a great answer. Bree, I want to ask you about, there's a couple of things I want to ask you about. I'm interested, you know, we think a lot, especially with what we do in the studio at Wheaton, about like just kind of practical issues of accessibility. And it's just kind of a good question, I think, to ask in general, like to you, what does a studio that's like more inclusive of different bodies look like? And I know you have this education background and everything, like I'd be really interested to hear how some of that thinking folds itself into what you do in the day-to-day.
Yeah, it is something I think about quite often as I'm like teaching students, and I think that like one of the most like obtainable free things that we can do is like sometimes fix our language, you know, and accept like that there's things in our like history in glass language wise that are like, you know, pretty inappropriate, you know, like the glory hole or the moil or whatever else we refer to things as in the glass shop. And I don't think that it's like worth saying like, oh, we can't use those words anymore, or those words are not valid to us as a medium. But I think it's just worth opening up to our students and being like, you know, call it something else if you want. Like, let's have a conversation about this. Let's talk about the way that we find ourselves in this space. And I think that would have really helped me when I was growing up in glass and when I was learning how to be an artist. Like, I kind of came into it at a time where it really felt like rah female power. Like, I felt like I had to, you know, be one of the boys and like show that I could like lift the big thing and like do it with them and like make crude jokes and, you know, and so I think like the easiest thing to solve is the way that we talk about it and the way that we talk to our students. And I think like it takes a lot of guts to just be like, this is a little messed up, like how can we work together on it, or how can we like figure something out that works for everyone in this space. I don't have an answer for equipment. You know, like I think that like here the shop's really low, so it's kind of nice. Like at home our glory holes are really high and I'm always like heating up here. And it's not the tallest shop I've ever worked in either. So I think that like if we have multiple options in a space, that helps a lot. And you know, buying welding jackets that fit every types of bodies and stuff like that is like small things that maybe will make a difference on a day-to-day, but I don't have some sort of like big answer for you, Alex. But it's the little things I think, and acknowledging our downfalls I think is really big.
That's great. I was hoping I could get some notes for our shop, but maybe that's next time. I'm just kidding.
We can have a private meeting about that.
Yeah. So I'm kind of making some connections, just seeing your two practices together. And one thing that I'm seeing, I think, in both is just kind of the gaze, or like the act of looking as kind of part of the practice. I think there's some really different examples of, you know, of a different kind of context to that gaze. But I think I want to ask you both a little bit about like looking or watching or being watched looking. In particular, Bree, I was thinking, we're like, I'm talking to you from Philadelphia, and we have in the PMA, we have Etan Dene, the important Duchamp work where you kind of go up to people and you watch, but like people are watching you watch. And that seems to be important, certainly to the work that you showed in New York. And same with you, Lily. I think something about like kind of watching a place and then kind of transcribing it into like tactile material. I'm just interested in how that figures into both of your work.
Do you want to go first, Lily?
I can. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Yeah, I think glass in general and glass blowing in particular is such a performative thing. I mean, it's such a team sport in a way, and I always kind of worked in a solitary way and was never really didn't have to communicate with people and I was mobile. Like you can take embroidery or kind of stitching anywhere. So being in one place with all these people and all these resources, it's like there's kind of a pressure to really make use of the time and to show up. So I guess in the making aspect, like that for me is something that I noticed immediately. Yeah, and I think glass is a material too, like many materials have memory, like they're kind of sentient beings in a way. Like every touch that you make to it there's some evidence of most interactions that you have with material. So glass in particular, like it has memory of heat, memory of a tool. So I think all of those things are I guess poetic aspects of material. And for me in my work, like that's something I guess that relates to like spaces. The evidence of use in a space is similar to that of evidence of process in a blown form or a sculpted form. Or I don't know if that really answers your question that well, but that's what comes to mind for me.
Thanks. No, I think that's a great answer. Do you have anything to to say about that, Bree?
I don't know if I have anything to say about like the way that Lily thinks about looking, but I can talk a little bit about like that kind of like playing with the idea of being looked at while looking. And I think like I think we often like find ourselves, being curious about other people in a way where we're like sort of like transfixed or maybe not necessarily like looking at them in a way where it's like desire. We're just sort of like either spaced out or we just find our eyes like somewhere they shouldn't be. And that's something that I've been thinking a lot about in the way that like thinking about my own experience moving through the world and my own experience growing up and how like, we're often
Pam, you're muted.
Thank you. We're just experiencing a little technical glitch. We'll be in contact with Bree and Lily to see if they can restart.
In the meantime, this might be, I already have one question for the group in the Q&A. If anybody has other questions for our presenters, this would be a great time to plug them in for the last bit of our talk.
I believe they are restarting and rejoining and potentially joining from their hotspots on their phones.
Yeah, I have seen from some other transmissions that we're having a power out in the studio right now, which I'm sure has affected the
There you
presentation.
are.
Oh, great, you're back. Yeah.
Hi.
Bree, you want to pick up where you left off?
Sorry.
No worries.
Oh,
Okay.
Do you want to pick up where you left off? I think you should be able to hear.
yeah, we can
Yeah.
hear you.
I have no clue what I was saying. I just got startled.
I think, Bree, you were talking about this, like, you know, kind of finding a gaze in a place where it's not supposed to be. Maybe not with like malicious intent, but just like kind of arriving in that space.
Yeah. Maybe that might be. Is that hot?
It's still
Yeah.
sorry.
So don't put it on the garage. I think it might still be warm. Yeah. I guess I like have been thinking a lot in recent years about the way that we look at different people at different times and the way that we're looked at in space and time. And I think like this kind of using that for artwork stemmed from that collaborative project that I showed, where my friend Hannah and I were both thinking about that peeping Tom narrative of kind of like peeping through and like looking at the female. And so we made these giant 13-foot keyholes that people could just like go into the gallery, be looking at a piece of art, and then be like seen through the keyholes while kind of looking, but they were like over exaggerated and huge. And so that was kind of the first instance that I was kind of taking this idea of looking and being looked at in kind of an art way. Yeah. I feel like I'm not giving it an answer because there's a lot of drama going on behind that. But
I think you
there
guys are
was a question
doing
I saw in the
great.
Q&A. I don't know, Alex.
Yeah,
you
I'm
need to
gonna read it to you
address
so that
that.
everybody else can hear that. Okay. So from
Okay.
Debbie, we have a question that reads, art has always been the subject of scrutiny. How have you found, this is for both of you, by the way, have you found the climate of opinion, especially in recent years, related to perhaps your more provocative themes? I'd love to think that the world has been evolving to be more open to the beauty and power in art and humanity. But of course, the world is fickle. I guess the real question is, can you speak to how you found your voice and resilience as an artist?
I guess I'll jump in there due to my provocative themes. But I think like it took me a while to like figure out what I wanted to like show in my artwork and what I wanted to do in it. And kind of like figure out like what part of my work was like for other people and what part of my work was for me. And I think one of the hardest things about that is like maybe not the general public, but it's maybe like, what would my mom think of this? You know, or like, what would my dad think of this thing? And it took me a while to like figure that out for myself. And some of that I think also came with coming out as non-binary and figuring out like how that fits into my life and world, and maybe like also helped give me the courage to just do it and say it. I kind of have this like distinct memory of doing this like art fair in Toronto when I lived there. And every like old lady was like, oh my God, they're balloons. And every like young kid was like, this is anal beads, you know? And like was like, Mom, these look like anal beads. And she's like, no, they're harmless. They're just balloons. And I remember like being like, thinking a lot about that, you know, like thinking a lot about this like generational divide and like what something is, or our willingness to like talk about our own kind of like human instincts or like who we are as people. I think too, like art spaces tend to be pretty willing to engage in different types of conversations. I haven't really had like a lot of direct backlash on like themes. I think like gallery directors are great. We love a good gallery director who is just like, yeah, say it, do it. I don't care. I'll deal with people being mad about something or whatever. So I don't know if that helps answer your question, but I think just over time, like just kind of deciding like, I'm just gonna do it. You know, like why am I holding back? And from my experience, it's been good to just be like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna say it. And I'm gonna open it up as a conversation. You know, I'm never like, oh, my opinion is the best opinion. I just want to talk to people about it and talk about how we exist as people in spaces and places.
Yeah, I guess my response to that is it's a great answer, by the way. Yeah, I think conversation is really important, or just talking about things, even if a conversation goes into something that's not directly related to your work, or it's not. I think that often can happen in critique too, especially in like undergrad or institutional settings where it can meander from place to place. And but I think all conversation is good conversation, even if it's not particularly relevant to what you're making, but it just gives context to things. But yeah, and I don't know if what was the other part of the question? I don't know if there was another part of the question, like finding your own was like being authentic to yourself.
The question is how you found your voice and resilience as an artist. So that's kind of a big question.
Yeah. I like it though. It's good. I mean, I think that's like an ongoing pursuit, at least for me. But
I think it's a forever pursuit. Yeah.
Especially in class too. I think the thing is, it's so hard to find, at least from my limited exposure to it so far, it seems difficult to find your own voice in class, because the way that you learn, and it's such a small community and very like insular, and it's great in that way because everyone's kind of watching what each other is doing. But there's a lot of cross-pollination. So I think it's hard to really make it feel like you made it, and at least initially starting out. So
I don't think we'll ever make it.
I mean, I think that's like, at least for me, an ideal is to be able to make something that feels like it's really true to me and like my other work. But I think for me, that's why working with other materials is so important and will continue to be important, because it just like informs those different parts of my practice that maybe glass can't reach or won't touch fully. So yeah, I don't know. I think interdisciplinary ways of working is an answer for me, at least.
Thanks so much to both of you. I think that's the end of the questions that we have in the can. So I'll hand it back to Pam to take us out. And thanks for transitioning so gracefully from one space to another in our kind of infrastructure meltdown at the last couple minutes.
Yeah, thank you all. That was fantastic and much quicker than I thought it was going to be. So thank you guys for that. And thank you everybody for tuning in and listening to a little bit about what our current fellows are working on. This is really just the tip of the iceberg in getting to know these two individuals. I have the websites of both Bree and Lily here posted on screen as well as in the chat. So I encourage you to check out their websites and continue to follow their work, because evolution continues to happen. Wheaton Conversations takes a break in the summer, so we will return in the fall. I do encourage everybody, even though you won't see us for a couple months, to please continue to check the website, particularly in late August, when we will have our September Wheaton Conversation up and ready for registration. So please come back and join us. And once again, thank you for joining us. And I love to hear from attendees. So please do feel free to contact me with your feedback, any questions, comments that you may have. I'm always open to hear them. Feel free to download the chat, or you can reach out to me through email. My email is posted here on the screen, and I can provide you with that text to some of the links that we talked about throughout this program. I sincerely thank you for joining us, and I hope that you join us again. Thank you, everybody.